English made easy. Hey guys! Bored of those vocab lists? Me too. At 1 Degree North Companion, we're turning wordly wise into an adventure to make learning actually interesting. Let's jump in. Book 3. Lesson 5.
You know that feeling, right? The thrill of a last-second shot in a basketball game? But the story of how that game even came to be, well, that's just as dramatic. It didn't start in some big fancy arena, but in the middle of a brutal winter, all because of a little boredom and a whole lot of snow.
So yeah, how did a snowstorm invent a global sport? That's really the question we're digging into. To answer it, we gotta go way back to the late 1800s in Springfield, Massachusetts. Picture a group of really rowdy students who were about to drive their poor instructor completely bonkers, all thanks to one seriously nasty blizzard. See, the winter of 1891, it wasn't just a bit chilly. It was a real period of Arctic confinement. I mean, just imagine being trapped inside for weeks on end, with all this pent-up energy and absolutely nowhere to go. That was the situation for the students at the International YMCA Training School. That word Arctic, it just perfectly sums up that kind of deep, biting cold. But you know what's wild, where the word comes from? It actually traces back to the Greek word Arctos, which means bear. Why? Well, it's a nod to the Great Bear constellation, Ursa Major, which is so prominent in the northern sky. So that feeling of intense cold is, quite literally, written in the stars.
Okay, so this bone-chilling winter created a massive problem for a young Canadian PE instructor named James Naismith. His students were going completely stir-crazy, and he desperately needed to invent a new indoor game, something that would burn off energy but, wouldn't destroy the small gym in the process. What Naismith had to do was invent a whole new form of recreation. And if you just stop and look at that word for a second, it's really cool. It's built from the Latin re, meaning again, and creare, which means to create. So recreation isn't just about having fun, it's about recreating yourself, refreshing your spirit. And man, did those students need it. So this was the huge problem that Naismith had to tackle. He had to figure out completely from scratch how to build a game that was fun, fair, and most importantly, safe to play indoors. To tackle a problem is to just face it head on and try to get it done.
And the word tackle itself is pretty interesting because it's as versatile as Naismith had to be. We use it when we're talking about solving a problem, sure, but it's also a physical move in a game, and it can even mean the equipment you use for fishing. It's a word that really gets around.
Naismith's first try at this new game was, it was pure chaos. He literally just nailed 2 peach baskets to the gym balcony, grabbed a soccer ball, and let the students go at it. With almost no rules, it just turned into a big shoving match. He knew right away that he needed some structure.
The first key was to establish limits. Simple, right? The most obvious was the physical boundary of the court itself. By drawing these lines on the floor, Naismith completely changed the game. Suddenly, it wasn't about brute force, it was about skill.
He also brought in the idea of an interval. That first game was so wild and tiring that he decided to split all the future games into 2 halves, with a rest period in between. The word interval actually comes from Latin. Inter, which means between, and volum, which means wall. So it literally meant the space between 2 walls. For Naismith's new game, it became the space between play, what we now just call halftime.
And from that messy, chaotic experiment in a small gym, something absolutely incredible started to happen. The game just exploded. Naismith's simple list of rules became the foundation for a sport that was about to take over the world.
That gymnasium floor became the world's very first basketball court. Now, the word court can just mean a flat, open area for a sport, but the word itself has a much bigger story.
Isn't it fascinating that we use that same exact word, court, for a place you play sports, for a king or queen's home, and for a hall of justice? The thing that connects all of them is this idea of a special, defined space where a very specific set of rules and behaviors apply.
Pretty soon, teams started popping up at other schools and YMCAs. They began to organize themselves into a league, basically a group of teams that all agree to play each other to see who's the best. This was really the birth of organized basketball as we know it.
Every single one of these steps was a huge milestone. And this is such a great example of how a word's meaning can change over time. A milestone was originally a literal stone marker that the Romans placed along their roads every mile. It came from the Latin milia passuum, 1,000 paces. These stones just marked your progress. But over time, milestone came to mean any really important event in a story or in history. And for basketball, boy, a massive milestone hit in 1936 when it finally became an official Olympic sport. That really cemented its place on the world stage.
So, when you think about it, from a couple of rules scribbled down to survive a snowstorm to a global obsession played by millions, James Naismith left behind a truly amazing legacy.
I mean, it's hard to watch the sport today and not just be amazed. To amaze someone is to just fill them with total wonder and surprise. The speed, the skill, the fact that it's played everywhere. It really is an amazing journey for a game that started with just a ball and 2 old peach baskets.
And for everything he gave to the world, James Naismith himself was one of the very first people to be elected into the Basketball Hall of Fame. The word elect comes from the Latin roots a, meaning out, and ligere, meaning to choose. So to elect someone is literally to choose them out from everyone else for a special honor. It's the perfect tribute for the guy who chose to tackle a problem and ended up giving the world a whole new way to play. So in the end, the story of basketball is so much more than just a story about a sport. It's this incredible reminder that sometimes the biggest breakthroughs don't come from a sudden flash of genius. They come from a simple, urgent need to solve a problem. And it just makes you wonder, what other great ideas are out there just waiting for the right problem to show up?
Thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed today's show. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss an update. I'll see you in the next one.